Hello, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist with your Agronomy in Action Focus Friday here on July the 26th. So, as usual, we're going to talk a little bit about crop progress, some agronomy questions I'm getting in the field, as well as observations. And I have a special guest here to discuss biostimulants for possibly this time of the year. So, getting started on crop progress. If we follow that 100-day corn we've been talking about, planted on the 1st of May, it has officially accumulated 1,426 heat units, and that's going to put it squarely at R1 or green silk for the growth stage. And so normally this would be a great time to talk about application of fungicide during that R1 timing, but we're going to get to that question actually a little later in the podcast. As for interesting, are we ahead or behind? We've talked about being ahead in heat units, but I actually jumped on the MSU's EnviroWeather website to find out how ahead really are we in heat units. And so I'm going to try to track this now through the end of the year. But if we look at the East Lansing area, the 5-year average for heat units is about 1,400. Now, East Lansing has accumulated 1457, putting it 57 true heat units above the 5-year average. Looked around the state as well. If we go over to Allegan County, their 5-year average is 1429, and so we're 53 heat units ahead in Allegan County. In Blissfield, we're currently 82 heat units ahead down in southeast Michigan there. If we go up into the thumb, in the Sandusky area, that's hitting about 80 heat units above the 5-year average, and wrapping around up into North Lansing and the Ithaca area, about 76 heat units above average. So great to see that crop development moving along. So listening this week, it sounds like the extended forecast is going to be for above average temperatures and normal precipitation. So that should put us through to a good rest of the year. As far as soybeans, boy, they are a lot more variable. Most beans, of course, are about that R2 or full flower to the R3 pod development type stages right now. And really, it just depends on the precipitation and drainage of those fields. In fact, most those fields have pale green areas in them in those wet areas. And it's really simply because of being short on nitrogen. And in fact, as I'm talking to folks on that, I'm saying, we may want to consider an application of some urea or some nitrogen out there somehow, maybe even up to 50 pounds of actual nitrogen just to try to green those areas back up. Because, of course, we know that soybeans need about 5 pounds of actual nitrogen for every bushel of expected yield versus corn's only about 1 pound of nitrogen for each expected bushel of yield. And of course, they're not getting that nitrogen from the air right now because of those wet soils. And so, with being in all this flowering and all this pod development, we're just utilizing a pile of nitrogen right now. And we got to make sure it's got enough there to get the job done and get us to the yield at the end of the year. But it's always say, make sure you scout those fields first, get out there. And if it is that just general pale green color, probably is nitrogen. If there's interveinal chlorosis or other things going on, might be talking manganese or even some disease out there. So look before you make any applications, but it is time to take some action on those soybeans. Moving into some agronomy questions I'm getting for the week, a lot of conversation still about tar spot and asking me, do I spray now? Do I wait? Yeah, my first question always is, how many times are you willing to spray? If you're going to say, I'm only going to spray one time, then we're probably waiting a little bit on that first application for tar spot out there with fungicide. And, even listening to Dr. Chilvers this week, he's finding that we can still get response in a positive way on, waiting through that R3 or milk stage to apply it. The scouting is about 50% of those plants showing lesions, but keep in mind that's walking through the field. Because once you see it from the road, it is too late. Speaking of some things being too late, we're getting a lot of reports of white mold right now in West Michigan showing up. in the soybeans there, and if we were going to spray that, that had to be at that R1 growth stage. Most of those beans are long past that. So the people that did some applications so far are seeing good results, and we'll continue to watch that as the season progresses. Crazy enough, though, you wouldn't think we'd talk about spider mites and white mold in the same year, but boy, up around that Shepherd area north of Lansing, it's been a little dry up there, and actually had some reports earlier this week about some spider mites being found up there. And of course, if we do have spider mites, we want to make sure that we, one, watch the forecast for rain coming up, but if we're going to spray, making sure we're using a miticide, because some of those insecticides can simply flare or make those mites worse out there. So taking a look and controlling those if we're in the situation of drought. Not much of that in Michigan, though, for sure, this year. As we come to our guest today, we have with us Madeline Carey, our technical sales manager for Syngenta Biologicals, covering Michigan, Ohio, and north central Indiana. So, welcome, Maddie. How are you doing?
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate you having me on here.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you as part of our team here. And, on this podcast, I like to keep my listeners constantly thinking about what they can do to possibly improve their yield potential. So, as we continue to think differently about our crop management, the idea of biostimulants seems to be one of the newer buzzwords in the field today. So, as our resident expert on our team, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this topic. So, as always, I've got three questions for us to discuss. The first one: what is a biostimulant, anyways?
That's a great question. So, a biostimulant is going to be any substance that is applied to plants, seeds, or the root environment with the intention to enhance the natural processes of a plant. And it's going to benefit the nutrient use efficiency. So, when you talk about all of the fertility programs, it's going to help efficiently move it through the plant and tolerance to abiotic stress or crop quality. And this is where the yield on biostimulant is categorized because it is going to help transport sugars and nutrients as well as promote cell division and expansion.
Well, very good. It sounds like just an interesting concept out there. I guess my next question is, why might my listeners want to even be aware of biostimulants this time of the year?
Yeah, that's also a great question. There's a lot of biostimulants out there. But when we think about the yield on biostimulant, it's going to enhance those natural processes like the uptake and remobilization of nutrients. And so the timing for this type of biostimulant is going to be with your fungicide applications. On corn, it's VT to R2, and on beans, it's going to be R1 to R3. And so we've talked about all of the fertility programs that these farmers have and really making sure we optimize what we have out there. And so biostimulant is a little bit harder to see how it is acting in the field. So that's why we have to know what is occurring when we put the biostimulant on the plant.
All righty. And I guess, of course, the next obvious question comes in is just curious on your thoughts on whether farmers should consider making additional investments like biostimulants in their crops this year, given the current market prices.
That is a great question. And, we can talk about what processes are affected in the plant with a biostimulant and what is in the jug. But at the end of the day, we got to know that there is a return on investment. So when we talk about biostimulants, I think that it's important to look into the investment that you make with it and knowing that what function is being changed in the plant, where is the change happening, and when is the best timing for your application. With that, it's also important to know that there's third party verification. We need to know that these products are going to work in a market that is not as favorable. And so, like with the yield on biostimulant, we have third party verification that gives us over an 80% win rate with corn and a little bit lower on soybeans. But when you talk about a biostimulant in this space, a win rate above 60% is a win. So, really understanding where the biostimulant comes from, what's in the jug, and what verification is done. And once we know that and know that it is a good biostimulant, then knowing that it's going to achieve what you want. And so the yield on biostimulant is positioned best in high yield environments. We're doing everything we can to optimize the yield, but we want to really push it to the next level. And so making sure we remobilize the nutrients that are out there, but also promoting the cell division and expansion. And so that's going to help with pod retention and also tip fill and bigger kernels. So when you ask the question, why should we care about a biostimulant? First, we need to know what the biostimulant is and know that there is the verification, the third party verification. But secondly, what processes are being changed in the plant and how is that going to benefit the end result, which is the yield?
Well, very good, Maddie. I just really appreciate you jumping on here and talking with us today. I always go back to the idea that, if we do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, we're probably not going to be very happy with what we find. So trying something new, looking at these types of things is always exciting to me. And so appreciate, again, your time today. And folks, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist with your Agronomy in Action Focus Friday. Have a great weekend.